The celebration of Halloween falls on the 31st of October, and it's usually celebrated in the community with child-friendly activities and known to be a very community-minded, child-centered costume party, if you will, with some rather gorish aspects. So where did these gorish aspects come from? The idea of death, ghosts, ghouls, trick-or-treating, bonfires, the idea of sacred fires that are connected to the Druids that were involved in human sacrifice. How does all this fit into the fun-loving holiday of Halloween, and how did it become, so to speak, Christianized? Well, in the 18th century, Pope Gregory III of the Roman Catholic Church wanted to integrate the pagan festivities of Samhain into the church, in fact, encouraging pagans to come to the Roman Catholic Church. And so it got this idea that somehow Halloween became Christianized. But remember that Samhain, the 31st of October, was the time when, according to the Celts, their Druid priests would go from house to house collecting sacrifices for their gods, for the deities of nature, with the understanding that October the 31st was the time when the veils were thinnest between the living world and the other world. So this was understood to be a time when the Druid priests could actually connect with the supernatural, call on them for very heavy-duty divination, fortune-telling, reading, through the entrails of human beings at one point. Of course, it's now been cleaned up, cleansed, and that isn't done any longer. And divination is just dunking for apples or peeling an apple and seeing how long the peel can be and throwing it over your shoulder. But all of these are connected in the ideas of fortune-telling and divination, the idea of contacting the spirits that were divine that could give us messages. Now, this aspect was connected to the Celtic holiday of spelt Samhain, pronounced Samhain, when the Druids would go from house to house with their carved-out turnips with a lighted spirit guide, a lighted candle in it, called a spirit guide, and so we get the name of the jack-o'-lanterns, where they'd go from door to door asking for payment for the deities, and if they didn't get the payment that they required, then they would curse the household. Here we get our idea of trick-or-treat, and usually the Druids would wear a head of an animal and animal skins, because these were believed to be imbued with powers so that they could, much like a shaman, have the powers of the divinity or the deities to be able to be involved in their divination. Now, part of the idea of the bonfires, these sacred fires that were seen across the hills of Britain, for instance, when Julius Caesar in his war, in the commentaries of the war and in his Gaelic commentaries of the war, said that there was these wicker men, these huge, great big 30-foot Ephesus that were effigies stuffed with human beings that were burned. At the end of the night, the next day, when there were bones scattered after these sacred fires, these were known as bonfires. So now we get our modern bonfire. Now, how can all of this be called a Christian holiday? Well, how did Halloween become Christianized? Pope Gregory III in the 18th century deemed it important to bring the pagans into the Roman Catholic Church and brought forward a holiday that was in May to honor the saints. It was a holiday when the martyrs that had given their lives up in the Roman Empire, had given their lives up because of their faith. They were martyred, and these saints were usually, there was a celebration within Roman Catholicism set apart for them in May. And Pope Gregory III decided to bring it up to November the 1st, which would be All Saints' Day, and the evening before All Saints' Day would be hallowed evening, or the evening for the hallowed ones. So now the idea of still having a worshipful ritual, if you will, for the dead is not part of biblical Christianity. Part of Roman Catholicism teaches that when somebody dies, they're not absent from the body to be with the Lord, but they go into a place called purgatory, which isn't in the Bible. And being in purgatory, they can be prayed for through Mass and rituals within the Roman Catholic Church so that those indulgences can purchase or purge their souls. So here we have the idea of two different holidays. Halloween, whether it's rooted in paganism, witchcraft, the idea of being able to call down spirits to be able to imbue one with knowledge for the rest of the year, or within Roman Catholicism, the idea of a Roman Catholic holiday of honoring the dead. And there's nothing wrong with respecting our loved ones that have gone before us and showing that type of respect, but we cannot purchase their souls through spiritual rituals. So we have to come right back to the biblical question that is Halloween a biblical holiday? And I think from both aspects, whether it's looking at it through Samhain and the Celtic origins, or through looking at it through Roman Catholicism and its so-called Christianizing, neither of those aspects are biblical.